I should prepare what I want to say before I just start a sentence and then go. Hello everyone, welcome back, and I'm sorry. It's been a little while because I've been away in New Zealand and I've been there for about a month and a bit, but more about that in another video. It's only been a couple of days and I'm still dealing with the jet lag, and I haven't even played Skyrim yet. I thought I'd make a video for you guys. So this video is going to be all about studying art at university, whether it's worth it, was it good or was it bad. I'm just coming purely from my experience, and maybe it will help you make a choice in the future. So just a little bit before I tell you all about my experience. I was at university. I finished my course 5 years ago now, and I can't quite believe it. So yeah, I finished 5 years ago, and I was the last year group actually to be allowed the lower tuition fees. So they were around 3,000 per year, but then after that year they went up to 9,000. So for me it was a bit like, I'm gonna do it this year, now or never kind of attitude. Unfortunately that meant it was a really competitive year for universities, and I remember going to a lot of the open days and there were just queues around the block. So anyway, this doesn't really apply to anyone, but I was very fortunate in that sense. The tuition fees being a lot higher than they were, you know, may have some sway in what you are thinking of doing. Maybe there's an alternative kind of course where you can learn the skills you want to learn rather than getting a degree, but maybe the degree is what you want or what you need in order to get to like the job that you're aspiring to get. I applied for 5 colleges or universities. By the way, these were all kind of actual like art courses, like art universities. I think all bar one of them, they all only focused on art. So I went for Slade in London, Chelsea, Central St Martin's, Goldsmiths, and I went for, what's the last one I went for? Seriously? We'll come back to that later. Bristol! I even got a place there, so I don't know why it was so hard for me to remember. Out of all 5 choices, I got into 3 of them. So I got into Bristol, Goldsmiths and Chelsea. And Chelsea was the one I chose in the end. And the reason I chose Chelsea was because they had like a sort of umbrella course. So you could choose fine art, and under fine art you could do whatever you wanted in terms of like sculpture, illustration, painting, whatever you liked. Whereas the others kind of had sort of focused areas of art. So if you did fine art painting, you kind of had your focus in painting. And for me, I hadn't really decided what my medium was, still haven't, but for me that kind of felt like a limitation that I didn't really want. It's a good idea for you to check out if you're choosing fine art. Is it specifically illustration or is it fine art as in a whole? Chelsea also had some amazing workshops that I just felt like were really good quality, and the technicians were really nice when I went in and spoke to them on my open day. This is something that I would highly recommend you do properly, unlike me, and that is go to the open days and properly explore it. When I went to a couple of open days, like I went to Goldsmiths, and for some reason, it was probably my mistake, but I'm fairly sure they'd listed an open day and they had a picture of the art block next to it, so I just assumed that it was an open day for the art building. And when I went there, they were like, no, you can't come in. I was like, oh, but I've come all this way and I bought a ticket to London and it's hella expensive. And they were like, no, go away. So it kind of spoiled my kind of idea of Goldsmiths a little bit, especially because I was applying for it and I just didn't really know what it looked like. So when I got the offer, I was like, I just don't feel like I can say yes to it because I don't know it well enough. So I said no to that one. And make sure you properly invest the time in going to see the university beforehand. Right, let's get right to the pros of going to university. One, and it's a really obvious one, I really enjoyed the course. I know not everybody on my course has the same feeling, but personally for me, it was 3 years of experimenting and going to lectures, and like for a subject that you're really interested in, 3 years of doing that like hobby, I found was really fulfilling and just a lot of fun. Number two, I had loads of freedom on this particular course. Now, this can be considered a con, and I'll explain why in a little bit, but for me it worked really well because it meant I could do all of the kind of medias that I wanted to do. So I could make installation work and sculpture, ceramics and painting, and I did everything. I could fully explore like the mediums that I wanted to explore. Number three, I made some really good friends, and I think this is always a pro to starting anything. Even if everything else about it sucks, you're bound to make a friend or two. Four, I got to live in London for a while, and it'd always been a kind of weird dream of mine to live in London, and now I have satisfied that dream and no longer want that to happen. I really love London, but for me it was a very busy lifestyle. It was really great for the fact that I lived in London and it was so close to all of these galleries, so it's great for my inspiration and things, but I just didn't see it as home. But it was really cool whilst I lived there for like 3 and a bit years. Five, I think. I took part in lots of stuff, so like on my course they offered lots of like extra things that you can do, extra lectures that you can take, symposiums. What a cool word, symposium. Anyway, I took part in something to do with the Tate Britain. We had like a lecture where we showed some work at the end, so that was pretty cool to show your work in Tate Britain. And I also weirdly on the side got a scaffolding licence. It's run out now, sad face, but I got the scaffold licence so that I could help people get their works of art up, so it was like hanging from the ceiling. That was good fun. Number six, my particular college got me into Tate Britain for free for 3 years, and I'm sure this isn't just exclusive to like my university. I bet there's hundreds of universities out there that offer like special student rates for certain things, or even to get in free to certain places. So I got to see all of the shows that you had to pay for free for those 3 years, so that was really good. In terms of an art degree, it is probably the most value for money course there is, considering how much you would pay for things like a studio and workshop time outside of university. So for example, if you're doing an English literature degree, you pay the same amount, but you're just going to lectures and you just have time with your teachers and stuff. But then when you're at university, they give you a studio space, you get to use the workshops for free, and sometimes they give you a certain amount of materials free to use as well. I had some discounted materials and things in the shop. Also, you get all those lectures and stuff too. Better value for money than most courses, but still way too expensive. My 7th or 8th pro. It's nice to have a student discount, let's not lie. Now onto my cons. Number one, I don't really feel like it prepared me for art in the real world. It was essentially 3 years of learning and education about art, but not applied art. So how do I apply all of this knowledge that I've gained into an everyday situation where I can earn money? Number two, this sort of stems on from number one, but they had very little practical networking and social media type lessons, and when they did actually introduce this, it was in our 3rd year of university that they were holding how to apply for funding and how to make a website, things like that, in like 1 week or 2 weeks at the end of the course, and they were sign-up courses as well, so you could only have a certain amount of people going to them. I actually missed out on a few of the courses just because they were full, and I feel like that is kind of a vital element to you graduating, because if you have all the skills but you don't know where to put it, you're going to feel a bit lost by the end of it, which is something I did feel a bit. Now this is something that I didn't find too much of a problem for me, but I know it would be a problem for other people, and that is there wasn't enough practical skill explained. So We would go to lectures that were about artists and about art periods and things like that, but there was nothing about how to paint. You know, it was kind of the assumption that you were there to experiment, but if you wanted practical advice on those things, there was nowhere really that gave you that advice. So I think that's something to bear in mind when you're going for it, exactly what they provide in terms of their tuition. I think this is con 4. And this may also just be me, but I found there was this weird kind of pressure to be a certain kind of person when you're at university. The teachers would expect you to be super extroverted and just to walk into galleries and just be like, hey, you need to show my work and things like that, and to be able to accomplish that. At that time, I was quite shy and I didn't really like just walking into places and just sort of being like, hey, here's me. And I'm fairly sure a lot of people are like that as well. So yeah, a weird pressure feeling. But con number 5, and this is going back to my earlier pro, which was there was so much freedom in the course. Now for me that really worked, but I know for other people that's not going to work at all. One of my friends who went to Goldsmiths said exactly the same thing and how it didn't work for her. There was so much freedom on the course that there felt like there was no structure. She was a kind of person that liked to work towards a kind of theme or an end goal. Say the theme is nature. You'd make work based around nature or using nature, you know, just like something to give you... I've got to go now. Hi, I'm back from my hospital appointment, so moving on. Where was I? Oh yeah, so the last point I was talking about I think was not very much structure, so some people can feel a bit like they don't know where to start. Con number 6 is one that doesn't apply to everyone again, but I was the kind of person that made a lot of installation work and really big sculptures and things like that, and I found that really hard to transition my kind of style of working once I'd left university. I no longer had the studio and I no longer had a place to kind of display things, and so it meant that I couldn't really carry on doing installation and sculpture in the same way that I was doing it before. I think this is number 7, but con number 7 is art school is a little bit poncy. You kind of get a little bit of a sort of I'm better than you attitude sometimes, depends who you're hanging out with, but then I think people thinking they're better than you, that's probably just part of life, and it's kind of a good learning curve to sort of challenge you to see how you deal with it. The crippling debt hanging over my head, I'll start paying it back if I find a regular situation for myself. But then again, in the art world, there's very few regular situations where you're making art and you're able to make a steady income. You may not actually have a chance to pay back your loan if you end up doing sporadic little jobs like I've been doing, so that's also something to bear in mind. So, my overall experience of university was definitely a positive one, and I just spent 3 years making cool stuff and I really enjoyed that. My advice for you is don't feel pressured. If you don't want to do university and you don't feel like it's something necessary, I would say it isn't that necessary. I think for me it gave me a little bit of time to grow my confidence. So I was then able to do my art classes and, you know, start kind of going out there and getting the commissions that I wanted. And also you can put a degree to lots of uses. If you have a degree you can go into teaching art. Try to figure out whether the skills in your course will align with what you want to do eventually as your end goal, kind of your job. And if you just really love the subject that you're going to study, then it's a great experience. It's great to learn about things, and sometimes it's not always accessible to you just to go onto the internet to learn about things, or just to go into your library. Sometimes it takes the real experience of like having a lecture or having someone talk to you or having lots of conversations with your friends that really makes you grow as an artist and as a person. I sometimes think that university was the best experience of my life so far. It definitely helped me get a job in a gallery, because I worked in a gallery for a little while. It definitely helped me become more tenacious. I'm rapidly losing daylight now, so I'm just going to wrap it up. Thank you so much for watching. I should have a new video out sometime in the next week as well. I really appreciate anyone who watches these videos, and I hope you continue to watch, and I hope this video helped you at all if you're considering university. So anyway, I shall see you in the next video. Goodbye.